Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just making sure everything is broadcasting properly. There we go. All right, the training lasts about an hour and a half to hour and 45. Trying to keep it closer to that hour and a half if at all possible. We're basically covering everything about Dash. Feel free to make use of the chat feature within YouTube. I'll try to keep track of that and answer any questions that come up. But let's go ahead and get rolling here. Oh, I should also point out we do record these trainings and they're stored here on our YouTube channel. So you can always come back, view it later, or if life gets in the way and you have to leave, again, you'll be able to view the entire training later. Pardon me about that. So here we have our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com webpage. Right, there's usually a blue bar going across the top. Just click on the word login. It'll take you here. I do recommend for most people to bookmark this page just to get here easier in the future. Now, in order to log in, we need your email address. Right, so if you just signed up, that would be the email address you used to sign up with us. Your password, and then your account name, which is typically your company name, right? Or the account name you created when you signed up with us. Now, if for some reason you don't have that or it doesn't work, then over here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. You can click on that. We still need your email address, right? That's the unique identifier for each user on a particular account. And then we need one of these two pieces of information. Typically, the easiest is the account name. That does need to have the correct capitalization and any punctuation that you included when you signed up with us, or a phone number on the account. Right, so that's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. But we need one of these two. We don't need both. Right, you'll click Reset Password. This will send you an email that you can then, has a link, lets you sign in real quick to change your password. If you try to navigate away from it, it will log you out. Once you change your password, it will also log you out and take you back to the login page where you then retype that password you just created. And then you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. So let's go ahead and get signed in. Now, I'm using a test account that I have logged into many times. So by default, I'm being sent here to our dashboard page. Right, just give me a quick view of what's going on with my system. If it's your first time logging into Dash, you actually get taken to your account page for your user. Now, to get there at any time, up here at the top, click where it has your name. And here you have your account page. So this is where you would click Edit here to change your password, for example. Now, as an admin, over here on the left, you have an option here to get to the account level settings. Main thing that's changed typically is the time zone. All right, you can click on here, you can go through it, or you can search for New York or Chicago if you're in the US. Outside of the US, you'd want to, choose the appropriate area. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a test account, so I only have limited options here. For you, on your accounts, underneath where it says user, there's going to be a section for billing, right? That's where you would update your credit card information. You could see your invoices. You can see what service plan you are on, as well as update who the billing contact is for the account, right? The billing contact, that's the person who gets all the invoices emailed to them. They actually have ultimate control of the account, right? They're the ones who can close the account, authorize porting, etc. Now, that first time you log in, you're going to have pop-up boxes, right? The Dash wizard starts up and starts telling you what things are. When you're done on this page, over here to the top right, there's a little close box. You want to click on that, and that will take you back to your dashboard page. Now, again, on that first login, the wizard will still continue to pop up, especially on here on the dashboard page, on the users tab, and on the groups tab. Right, so up here at the top, again, you have your name. Click on that, get to your user page, change your password, for example. For most of you, to the right of your name, you're going to have a D&D toggle, right? So D&D for Do Not Disturb. It's by default, it's off, right? So if you click on it, it'll move it over to the right and be white. That means it's on, which means you're not going to be offered calls. The reason I don't have it on my user here is because my user is part of an ACD queue, and the ACD queues and the Do Not Disturb feature don't play well together. All right, then we got the help icon. Oops. And by default, you'll have 3 options here, always. Now, I have a 4th one because I added a particular device, so we'll get to that shortly. But first off, we got Chat with Us. This opens up a chat window, typically at the bottom right of your browser window, so that way you can speak with a support staff member in real time. Oops. All right. Learn more. This opens up a new tab and takes you right to our support pages. So that way you can look at guides that we have up on our website. You know, they'll have screenshots. Some of them have videos, so you can go through that particular feature. Then we have Online Store. This opens up a new tab and takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you could buy things like a VoIP phone or a router. Right? Those 3 are always here. Web phone, that's the optional one. This only shows up after you've added a web phone device to your user. And then even then it shows up after it should show up on your next login. You might have to clear your cache and cookies if you do it right away. Right? So if you just added a web phone, you log out, I would advise you to clear your cache and cookies from your browser. Then you log back in and then it would show up here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. And this allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. Now, when you first get to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it asks you to log in. That uses your Dash login information, right? So same email, same password, same account name. Next up, we got the hamburger icon or the menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines up here at the top right. Now, we're on the dashboard, and that's where we're going to be for most of the training. But these are other features of Dash. Some of them, like blacklists, for example, they're included, right? They're basically on every plan, except for the voicemail only plans. Others are plan specific, meaning you might have to upgrade your plan, like say dynamic caller ID. So anything like that, I'll try to point out which one is a plan specific feature. So if you're interested in it, for any plan specific features that don't show up here for you, that means you don't have it. And if you're interested in it, you would need to talk to our account services team to see about what you would need to do in terms of plan changing to get that particular feature. And then this last icon is to log out of your dashboard here. Right here in the middle, total users, I have 23. Right, so these are people, staff members who make and receive calls on my account. Most of our plans are based off of the number of users you have. Right, so last week I was at 21 users, now I'm at 23, so I'm paying more per month. Then I have my total devices of 39 and a breakdown. Up here first is the soft phone, and this just means a software application that acts like a phone, right? So it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it's a kind of VoIP phone. I have 16 of them, and in this particular breakdown, this is lumping all the soft phones together. So whether you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone app or a third-party app, so like Xlite or Zwiper, right? It would be under this soft phone heading. Cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. The web phone, it looks like I have 6 of those, or 8 of those, excuse me. Right, so again, that's that Chrome or Firefox. Oh, I should point out, the Chrome or Firefox, the web phone, you have to use that browser, those browsers specifically on a computer. So desktop or laptop. The mobile versions of those browsers are not supported. Right, SIP phone, this is a physical VoIP phone, right? It's a piece of hardware. Generally, sits on someone's desks. They have a hard Ethernet cable connection to your router. Use your internet connection to make and receive calls. I have 2 unregistered devices, and that's in reference to my SIP phones. So 2 of them are offline. That could be they're not plugged in. That could be someone's having a network issue at their location, right? If I have a remote employee mic, maybe he just upgraded his router from his ISP, and now his phones aren't working, so he has to adjust his router settings, most likely, right? Or, it could be also if someone's having an ISP is having an outage, any VoIP phone that connect to that ISP would also show up as unregistered. Total phone numbers, 37. Generally speaking, our plans include anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. So I'm definitely paying an overage. The default, so for brand new plans, local and toll-free numbers are $1.99 each per month per phone number. Now, there might be some exceptions of that for some numbers. Generally speaking, those exceptions are for international numbers. You can have international numbers on your account. You're going to want to email our porting team, and that's porting@virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in having a number in. They'll first let you know if that's possible, right? That we can get numbers from that country. And at that same time, they'll let you know if there's additional requirements that that country has in order to get a number. It's going to vary from country to country. All right. So then we have a breakdown here of assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means it's a number you're using. Right? Someone can dial that number and hope to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Spare number, it's a number on your account, so it counts towards your allotment. You're just not currently using it. That could be because you're about to expand into a new geographic location, so you got a phone number for a storefront. Right, so you get the number ahead of time, so that way you can start, preparing the marketing materials for it and the promotions, etc. Likewise, it could be you had a promotion running, and now that promotion's over. You can just take that number out of service temporarily, right? So that way you don't get calls about a promotion that's no longer valid, and then you're going to reuse that number come the next holiday. Then we have this breakdown here: USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US-Canada toll-free, right? That's a 1-800 number, or 888, or 877, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number. Right? So if you have a number in San Jose, California, it would show up under this bucket. Right? Likewise, so would a number from Chicago, Illinois, Des Moines, Iowa, where have you. Conference bridges shows I have 4. That means I've enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference with 4 of my users. Right? It's a user feature. Now we're going over here to the top right. I don't know how visible that is on YouTube, but we're looking at the main number box here. So these 5 phone numbers, these all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. And obviously you can have multiple, or you can just have 1 or none in some cases. Conference number, excuse me. I have the 1 here, but you can have multiple conference room numbers. This phone number is what everyone dials to join a conference. Right, so if you're having like a 10-person conference, everyone dials this number. Whether they're your staff members, your vendors, or your clients, that's the number they call. Then they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. Then we have the fax box number. You can have the 1 main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. All right. Company directory, right here, this is a download link. It downloads a CSV file, shows your usernames, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. The cell phone directory, this is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application. And it will show you the status of the other cell phones on the account, right? So if everyone on your company is using the VirtualPBX cell phone app, everyone can download this, upload it to that app, and they'll be able to see the status of everyone else, right? Whether they're on a call or not. Now, if any of your staff members are using multiple phones, right, with this cell phone directory, you're not going to see the status of those other phones, right? So if my colleague Jeff is on his Yealink phone, right, talking with a customer on my soft phone, I'm not going to be able to see that. So to me, his soft phone's probably not in use at that point. It looks like he's available for me to call him, for example. Right, store discount code, just for being a DAP customer, you get a discount code for use in that store.virtualpbx.com, save you a little money. And then we have the account realm. The account realm is unique for each account. It is used in a couple things, primarily used for programming a third-party application, right? So a third-party soft phone or even a VoIP phone that is not able to be auto-provisioned. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you need to get those devices to work. It's also used for when you send out a fax. Within Dash, in sending out a fax, you actually don't need to log into Dash to send a fax out. You just need to create an email, right? So your username, right, is your email address. That email, from there, you create an email like you normally do. In the to field, +, number 1, area code and phone number, @ your account realm. Then you attach a PDF or TIFF under 7 megabytes, and then you click send. All right, so the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It only looks at one attachment. So if you have like 5 attachments, it's only going to grab one of them. And if it's not a PDF or TIFF, it's going to fail, right? If that one that it grabs happens to be a PDF or TIFF, that's the one it sends. You won't know for sure which one it is until you get into the fax manager. Okay, up here, you have caller ID. This is actually your company caller ID. This pull down, my streaming software doesn't display pull downs or all the pull downs properly, including this one. But this pull down allows you to select one of your main numbers, right? So one of these 5 phone numbers over here. And that number that you select becomes your default phone number for your VoIP phones when they make outbound calls, and some other features as well. Then you have the company caller ID name. This is called CNAME within the telecom industry. This allows you to put up to 50 characters, including spaces and special characters in this box here to the right, that will then attach to your phone number that you select up here as part of your caller ID. This is optional. You don't have to do this. And there are some limitations, which I'll get to shortly. The system does want you to fill out the company emergency information, or E911. It wants a North American address. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, when you click on Save Changes, and if you have entered information in the CNAME field here, that information gets transmitted to other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their servers. Right, so in between that time, hit or miss if that information is actually going to be transmitted on your calls out. Not every carrier supports CNAME. So, and it's possible when you make an outbound call, your call can route to a carrier that doesn't support CNAME. That means your CNAME information doesn't reach your destination. The most problematic part about CNAME is the cell phone carriers, right? The cell phone carriers, they all control what shows up on their cell phone's displays, right? They're the ones who put in spam risk or telemarketer or what have you. We can't control that, right? We can't overwrite that because that's their technology, for lack of a better term. Some cell phone carriers want to charge their subscribers in order for CNAME information to show up on all calls. Mine, when I looked at this a few years ago, they wanted $10 a month just to have that company information show up on my cell phone. I decided that wasn't worth it to me, so I'm not paying it. So that's something to be aware of when you're calling cell phones. Your CNAME information may not go through. and probably won't. The other thing to be aware of, and it's fairly minor, if someone has programmed your phone number into their phone, whatever they labeled you, that's what's going to show up on their phone. All right, next up here, we've got hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own media files. It will accept .wav, .wav, and .mp3 files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, and that's just because when you play it back, when you listen to it over the phone, right? Phones only have one speaker, so they can't play stereo files well. And then the other thing is you want to make sure it's under 1 megabyte. That would be the other reason why you want to use mono, gives you more space. You would just click this upload button here, click on browse to find the file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, then save changes. Now this pull down here will show you other media files you've already added to the account. Now, music on the system is defined as after a call has reached a user on their VoIP phone, right? Then that call is connected. Then your user presses hold on their VoIP phone. That's when the music on hold file will play. Right? So it's not something that plays before the call connects. It's after that call connects and the hold button is pressed. All right, hours is actually part of main number. So let's just click on main number here and work our way down. Once it loads, the main number page can take a bit to load. First up, you have your main company numbers. Down here, you have two options, add from spare or by numbers. Right? So add from spare means you're reusing a number, right? You're taking one of your spare numbers and putting it here. So when you click on this link, you have a little window and it says, hey, here's your available numbers. And then you can click on one, put a little check mark, click on add selected, and voila, it's now one of my main numbers right down here. Likewise, you can buy numbers. Now that's how the system uses, or the word that whoever designed this interface said to add numbers to your account, right? So let's say you only have one number, but your account includes up to 15. When you click on buy numbers, you're not being charged anything. It's just being added to your account. So it's not something to worry about for the most part. Now, you have a choice here of local or toll-free. I'm going to start with toll-free. First, you decide what toll-free prefix you want to work with. Then you click on search. And it's going to give you a list of numbers that are available. Now, this list that is showing up is referred to as a dynamic list, meaning you are technically competing with other people in real time for these numbers. So make sure you complete the whole process, right? You don't want to wander off in the middle of it, because if you just click add here, right, now it's in my cart. It's not reserved, right? It's not on my account. So someone else could actually buy this, get this number if I happen to go, walk away to use the restroom, right? Or my boss said, hey, meeting now, and I couldn't finish this process. If you don't want a number anymore, right, you decide, oh, I don't like it, or you saw a number you like better, just click on the little trash icon. But here, we'll choose this one here. You click on buy numbers. Now it's waiting to it's double checking to make sure the number wasn't taken by someone else while I was talking. But here it's added to my account. Local numbers, slightly different in that you need to know the area code that you want a phone number in. Right? So you type search, and you can get this message here, right? And that just means that area code is exhausted. Not that it's tired, there's just no numbers readily available. All right, 310 is in Southern California, near Los Angeles. So in that instance, you'd want to find out about if there's an overlay area code, right? And use Google or your favorite search engine. But you would then, I would do a search for area code 310, right? And usually it'll tell you what the overlay is. In some cases, or if you go to like Wikipedia, normally it will give you like a little map and show you nearby area codes. So I know that area code 424 is an overlay for area code 310, right? That means they share the same geographic space, right? They have the same borders. And then I click search here, and now you see I have a lot of numbers to choose from, right? When you scroll down, it'll keep adding. Again, otherwise it's the same process. You click add and then by numbers, and it will show up here. Now, for any phone numbers, you have this little gear icon here to the right. So you can update the caller ID, right? So you can have the CNAM information up here. You can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. Right? That way your staff members will see people's names on their phones if it's being transmitted. E911, you can set up each phone number with its own E911 address. This can be handy because that means you can use this to assign your various VoIP devices to a specific phone number for E911 purposes, right? So that way it's got the right address associated with wherever your staff member is physically located. So if they happen to use their VoIP phone to dial 911, they transmit the correct address versus like your corporate headquarters. Prepend is a VoIP feature. This allows you to add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays. Right? Give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. Now, I have a lot of main numbers here right now. Maybe I don't want this many. So I can always click this unassign button here. All right, here we can get rid of the 2 toll-free numbers. Right, so now those numbers aren't removed from my account. Right, now they're spare numbers. I can use them someplace else if I want to. All right, office hours strategy. You have a choice of being 24-hour open office, right, meaning you're open 24/7, or custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of it. And then in these boxes here to the right, you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You can also type in the boxes if you want to say 5:15. Down here at the very bottom, you also have the choice to be closed for lunch. If you put a check mark here, then you set your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And then any changes, you click on Save Changes, which might be cut off on YouTube, so I apologize. Then we have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark. Then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. It's a little pull down. You have Single Day, Date Range, and Advanced. Oops. Each one of these options creates a new row, right? So you just need to give it a name. Why does it keep doing that? So for like single day, New Year's Eve, right? I gave it a name. I choose the month and the date, then I click Save Changes. Date range is like I have down here for Xmas or Christmas break, right? I give it a name, start date, end date. One thing to notice, right? There's no year indicator. So we typically recommend to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Long ago, that caused a problem. It hasn't in several years now, but as a precaution, I say just don't do that. Just have New Year's Eve and New Year's Day have their own individual day. And then you can, or even date ranges that end or start with them respectively, right? So you can have a date range that ends with New Year's Eve, and then a date range that starts with New Year's Day. And then advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving, right? You give it a name, select the month. This middle pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last, right? And then the day of the week. And then Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. So this is all in relation to those main numbers I have up here at the top, right? And same with these hours, office hours and the holidays, right? They all have to do with these main numbers up here. I have these subtabs, right? Open hours. What am I going to do for after hours? What am I doing for holidays? Right? But they have the same basic options. Now, by default, you'll have these first three for sure. The fourth one only comes up in special circumstances. So first option here, call comes in during my open hours to my virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click on. It's going to open up a big old box. And you see here on my left, I have the main menu. Right? This is what people can press on their phones to navigate through the phone system. I have add route here. Whoops. Right down here at the bottom, add route. This creates a new row. And then you have a pull down, right? 0 through 9 plus the star key and the default action. And then the second pull down is where do you want it to go, right? You have the smart PBX directory, right? Dial by name directory, user directory, whatever you want to refer to it as. You can have a menu option go to a specific person, right? So one of your users on your account. Call queues, if you're making use of call queues, then you can have them as a menu option. Groups. Oh, call queues are an add-on feature, so there's a cost associated with it. Groups are an included feature. They're somewhat related in the terms of you have got multiple staff members can be answering calls. Just queues have more routing options than groups. But these are your basic departments. You can send it to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. The downside of it is if that phone doesn't have its own built-in voicemail or answering machine, that person calling either just rings forever or they hang up. Right? There's no real in between. Or you can send people to a voicemail box, right? So they can leave a message. You've got a media file. This would be just playing a media file, right? So like hours of operation or directions. But after the media file is done playing, the call will end. And then advanced call flows. Again, these are some special circumstances, but like Spanish and Chinese here, this would be if I was going to make use of submenuing. Right? I have one for English, two for Spanish. Those would each be their own attendants with their own greetings and menu options. Speaking of greetings, over here on the right, these are my greeting options. Text-to-speech, you can type in what you want the system to say. You have 250 characters to work with, not counting spaces, not words, right? Characters. But it's the computerized robotic voice. This is good for use if you're just starting, right? So like you're not familiar with how phone systems work. You're a startup business, what have you. There's no charge for these, first and foremost. The downside is so we're in our open hours, right? So if I type something here, then hit update, save, and then save changes back on the other page, the system saves that text-to-speech greeting as main open hours menu TTS, right? Because I don't have an option here to give it a file name. So let's say I type one in, right? Greeting one, first run through, I call in, I listen to it, I'm like, oh, I forgot to put Bob's option on there. And Angela's name sounded funny, right? So then I come back in here, I re-edit it. Hit update, save, and save changes. Now I have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So from any pull down option, I'm not gonna have an easy way to recognize which one is which. So my recommendation, when you make use of text-to-speech greetings, as soon as you hit that update, save, and save changes, you wanna go over to your greetings tab. It's over there right here. It's grayed out because it's on the bottom page here, but it's just across from the option 3. There you can edit the file name. So you can make it something that is recognizable, or at least you can identify between the two text-to-speech greetings. All right. Next up, you can upload your own file. .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. Just click on choose file to find the file name. You can enter what you want the system to call it, right? So what it will show up under those pull downs, update, save, and save changes. You can choose from existing recording. So this pull down here will show all your media files, whether they're hold music files, like I have right here, main greetings, or even voicemail greetings, right? So that's why you want names that are easy for you to identify what they are or what they should be used for. You can record a greeting over the phone. Now this line here, it says pick a phone registered to the account. What that means is pick up a VoIP phone on the account. Right, so as a security feature, the system by default wants you to use a VoIP phone that you've added to your account to record your main greeting. If, however, that's not going to work for you, let's say, for example, you signed up with us today and you didn't have any VoIP phones, so you also ordered a couple of VoIP phones from us. Obviously, those VoIP phones haven't arrived yet. and let's say you've had trouble, if for whatever reason you're like, okay, let me just call in, I want to record a greeting from my cell phone. You can do that. It just means under here, under settings, where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn this on. Now you can use any phone to call in to your main number and record a main greeting. Now, you're going to want to have these instructions handy because it does say, hey, you do need a PIN number. So if you just signed up with us, if you call your main number, right off the bat, the system will tell you that there's no greeting for this menu. It will then prompt you for the PIN number. That PIN number that I have here, that's specific to my open hours, right? So I can't use it if my system is an after hours. So after 5 p.m., right? If I call in, I use this PIN number, won't work. The system wants the after hours PIN number when I call after hours. The other to keep in mind is if you have a greeting file in place, right? When you call your main number, you'll hear that main greeting. You can still enter in your PIN number. The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording a new main greeting. When you do that, you're overwriting the greeting you just heard, right? So greeting A is playing when you called in. You enter in the PIN number. System walks you through recording a new greeting. Greeting file A, the name stays the same. You just change the content. All right, professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. And you can order a greeting from them. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They do their own billing. They deliver via email, and then you would just upload your own file. All right, settings. I explained these first two together. Number of retries on missed dial, right? How many times the inbound caller can make a mistake, right? And then dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for button presses after the first one, right? So caller calls in, listens to my greeting, presses 7. The system waits 5 seconds, right? Saying, are they pressing additional numbers in case it's a multiple digit extension number? If they don't press anything else, system says, okay, there's no menu option 7. There's no extension 7. System checks, oh, they get a retry. Main greeting plays again. Say that inbound caller presses 9. System waits 5 seconds. Nope, no other button presses. No menu option 9. No extension number 9. So then it will send them to my default action, which is this last one here, which sends the caller to my Smart PBX directory. Now, if I don't have a default action in that scenario, then the call will end, right? The system will tell them, we did not recognize your entry, and then says goodbye. Allow outside recording. That was for the recorded over the phone. So then we've got allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, right? And that means if someone enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If I turn it off, that means the inbound caller can only press my menu options. The system will treat extensions numbers as invalid entries. And then you have the option here to suppress the playing of the invalid entry message, right? So if you don't want that message to play, just click that to turn it on. So now the invalid entry message will not be played to your inbound caller. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click Save here. You also need to click Save Changes here back when you're under incoming call handling, right? So you're clicking Save twice. Right. Next option, this is your live operator answer option, right? So you're giving someone a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then you're sending the caller to the virtual receptionist. So this pull down, right? You can start at the Smart directory. I'm not sure why you would do that, honestly, but this is mostly designed or with users or groups in mind, or even queues. Right, so you're offering a call for users, you're offering a call to a specific person. Call queues can be offered to multiple people. Groups can also be offered to multiple people. Devices would work, right? Because after the system will automatically transfer the call to the virtual receptionist, after 20 seconds. And we scroll down. You don't want to do voicemail boxes that behave strangely. Media file. So this can be confusing, right? Because you'd have two media files play back to back. Right? If you had a media file here and then you went to your virtual receptionist, you have another media file playing, and that can confuse your staff or your callers. But this, since we're still under open hours, this virtual receptionist is the one we were just looking at. If, say, we went to lunch hours, let's put it over here. Right, so again, you still have this pull down, but then this virtual receptionist is different, which would make sense, right? You'd probably want a different greeting to play during your after hours than during your open hours. And it's then possible that you would have different menu options. Right here, basically similar to the second one, where you're offering calls to someone or groups of people, but then you're telling, hey, go to a specific voicemail box. Now, this option also at the very end has the option to say, just send them straight to voicemail, right? Don't try to ring anybody, just boom, voicemail box, and then you choose the voicemail box that you want the calls to go to. This option, typically I see under holidays for actually any business, but primarily like smaller businesses, right, where the owner, right, is the only user on the account, and they're like, I want a vacation, closing up shop for a week and going to Hawaii, right? Also shows up for seasonal businesses, right? So like tax preparers, any of those kind of customers with us, they're probably going to skip the voicemail right now. Now, this last option shows up if you have advanced call flows. There's a couple of reasons why you would have advanced call flows. One would be you had custom work done by our services team. And then the other would be if you have multiple auto attendants on your account. Multiple auto attendants is a plan-specific feature. And the ones that show up here would be the ones that I have made available in my main menu, right? So my sub-menu options. This option typically not used. Right? I don't think I've seen it on any live accounts being used. All right, main conference number. You can add different spare by new, right? So you have multiple conference numbers. The custom greeting here is text to speech. So you have 250 characters when you enable it, and then you type in what you want the system to say, save, and then you have it here. Even if you don't have that custom greeting there, when anyone calls your conference number, the system will say, welcome to the conference, and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number, and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have one, right? So that's why I don't have the option to add from spare or buy new here. You do have the option to edit the fax box. When you click on that, so this first field, inbound notification email, right? So this email address, so Bob, is getting emails anytime a fax comes through the system. Right? It'll say you have received a new fax, the date and the time, both phone numbers involved, and then there'll be a PDF attachment. Right? So Bob can then click on it, see if it's something that needs to be worked with, or send it to the correct person. Now, if someone dials your fax box number, let's say from their cell phone, right? Then they hear the fax tones and hang up. Bob's still going to get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So when you get those, you'd want to check your call log, right? And look at the email, right? Because it'll tell you the phone number involved. So if it's a number you recognize of a fax you were expecting from, then you know, hey, I need to call them to say, hey, the fax didn't get through. Right? If it's a number you don't recognize and then you find it in the call log and it's like 6 long, like more than likely was someone dialing, misdialing and hanging up. All right, email permissions. This is for outbound faxing. It's designed with putting your company's email domain in this field here. And this allows anyone then with an email at that domain to send a fax out, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. Right? They just need that +1 area code and phone number, @ symbol, your account realm, attach a PDF or TIFF. So any changes here, click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, allows for multiple auto attendants. So of use cases, typically submenuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, 3 for Chinese, right? Each one of those are menu options that would have their relevant auto attendants created here, right? And you could have their own greetings in their appropriate language, and the menu options would go to people speaking that language. The other use is if for a standalone attendant. And that is typically if you have multiple small businesses, right? So each business has its own phone number, its own main greeting, right? But you have the same staff member potentially answering calls for both businesses. Or you just simply want them on the same account for ease of billing. Excuse me. All right, up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You just need to give it a name and an extension number. The extension number for internal use, right? It's not expected that any of your customers would ever know this. And then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you click on its name, and it defaults to being unavailable in main menu, meaning it's standalone. If you click on it, now it's available in main menu. It can show up in other menu options. Right, so if you want a standalone separate business, you leave it unavailable in main menu. If you want it to be a menu option, you make it available in main menu. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? You can add from spare or buy new, like we have up here for Pooch Walk. When you do have a number here, you have the option here to click on that little gear icon to add caller ID or E911, etc. Extension numbers, again, internal use only. Literally, so someone could call one of my main numbers and say, oh, I meant to call Pooch Walk. My staff member could then transfer the caller to this extension number, and it would still get to this auto attendant. So then you click on the little wrench icon here under Settings. And here I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? So these times or dates in the case of holidays match what we already set up under main number. So my secondary business here of a dog walking business has to have the same hours of operation as my primary business. Now, if for some reason that doesn't work for you, then you definitely want to talk to our account services team. They'll see if it makes sense for you to have a custom build done where your secondary business has its own schedule behind the scenes, or if it makes more sense for you to have 2 accounts. Now, this is a virtual receptionist, right? That's your only option. So you would want to set up menu options here, right? Each version would have its own greeting as well. And you have the same setting options. It's basically just like the virtual receptionist in that regard. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send a call to it. We don't know why. Right? Could be unplugged, could not be logged in the case of soft phone or web phone. Could be a network connection, could be an internet issue. Black means you just turned it off. Right? You can just click on over here to the right. Oops, I clicked way too many times. But when you turn it on, it'll either turn red or green. And then green, like we have down here, means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Up here at the top, you can add new devices. First up is SIP phone. That's that physical phone, right? Piece of hardware. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of options. Some, not so many. But you want to choose the make and model of the phone you want to work with. And then you need to give it a name, right? I usually say person's name and then the word phone, or the location, like break room phone. Then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique for each device. It's often a sticker on the back of the device. If the device is plugged in under its status section, it should have the MAC address listed there too. And then you click on Create Device. Now, as far as our dashboard is concerned, the only other thing you would need to do is assign that device to a user. But you do need to access the phone's web user interface. You typically do that by getting the IP of the phone, get the IP address, and put that in the address bar of your browser. The computer and the phone need to be on the same network. That lets you get to a login page, and then you can access the phone's user interface. For the specifics of that, under our support pages, you want the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It will have screenshots for the various manufacturers. It'll have the default passwords and usernames for them, the proper syntax for the URL that you're telling the phone to get the config file from, as well as a couple other things to double check settings-wise. When you do that, you click Update or Confirm or Save, and then you tell the phone to auto provision now. The phone's going to reboot a couple times, because basically it goes on the internet, gets the config file, downloads it, starts applying changes, and that usually requires a couple of those reboots. After that, though, it should show up as a green device here on your system, so then you can make and receive calls. Cell phone and landline are the same process. You give it a name, and then you enter the number, right? +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Create Device. Now I'm going to go down here to this demo device and it's on the little wrench icon here. And then, so you see the proper format, right? So name, +1 area code and phone number. If I go to Advanced Options, this here is the default settings for a new landline or cell phone. In terms of how Dash handles this, right? So call comes in and we're sending it out to the cell phone, right? Cell phone rings and then you pick up. Now, the first thing you're going to hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. The system then connects call to you. You begin speaking. That's great if I'm actually sending calls to, say, my cell phone. However, let's say, for instance, I've actually just signed a deal for an automated answering service to answer my calls for after hours. They gave me a phone number to send the calls to. Well, on my Dash system, right, I can add it as a landline or a cell phone. And if I leave it at default, odds are the call won't connect because that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. It probably can't because it's a computer. So in that case, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here. So now when we send a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, so when the answering service picks up, we connect the call. Right? Call goes through, automated answering service handles the call. Now, if this is actually my cell phone and I have this setting set, what can happen is call comes to my cell phone. If I'm not able to pick up, but my cell phone voicemail picks up, that's a connected call. Right? It's still a pickup tone. So the system will send that inbound call to my personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want it, some people don't. The other thing that can come up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So by default, customer Mary calls in, gets to your cell phone. On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. So you let it go to voicemail because you've had a lot of robodialers, right? Whether it's before extending your caller warranty or some, whatever set of political ads that are coming your way. If you uncheck this, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number on your cell phone, you would see your main number, meaning under caller ID, this main number that you selected here. So that way you would know, oh, this is a work call. This is worth it for me to pick up. All right, next up, soft phone. Now on the devices page, when you add a soft phone, you're only able to add a third-party soft phone. Right? Meaning you're using someone else's application. Right? You would give it a name, you'd copy the SIP username, you'd click on the SIP password box to see the password, and you would copy that, and then you have the account realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program a third-party application. right, then you click on create device and then add the device to a user and then see about programming that application. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you have to add that device directly to the user, right? So you don't want to be on the devices page. The other device, you can add the web phone here too, but since the web phone uses your Dash login information to log into it, to me, it doesn't make sense to add it on the devices page. You just add it directly to the user that you want to make use of the web phone. Pardon me. All right. Then you have a little gear icon here next to your devices, or the wrench icon, pardon me. Under advanced, for audio, for a physical device, so like the Cisco phone, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are the codecs. For the VirtualPBX soft phone, you want to make sure Opus is the codec. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure to show, under advanced, emergency caller ID. So you can select one of your other phone numbers. Right, so these are only two that have E911 already associated with it. So I'd have to select one of these two and then save changes. And that's the E911 address that's sent out when someone dials 911 from that phone. Right, and I can do that for each of my phone numbers, right? Set up an address for each phone number and then assign it to the appropriate phones. All right, greetings. These are your various media files on your account. All right, so hold music, main greetings, voicemail files, or voicemail greetings. Up here at the top, that's where you can add new ones. All right, you can give it a name, find the file on your computer, .wave.mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click on create greeting. It will then upload it and be here. Here, you see the name, you see the source, right? So you have upload, right? Uploaded file, TTS, text to speech, and then recording means it was recorded over the phone. This column here allows you to play back the file right in your browser. That's basically, it's pretty new. It's only a few weeks old, right? So that way you can tell if a file is still relevant, right? So, oh, I don't need this. I can, reduce my number of readings. You can always download these greetings to your device, right? So again, so you can listen to it, or let's say you accidentally uploaded a stereo file and it's not playing back properly, right? You can say just download it, edit the file, and then come back and re-upload it. The little wrench icon here, this allows you to change the file name, right? So you can make something you can recognize. Also, the option to remove a greeting you're not using or don't want to have on the system. Groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. Up here at the top, you click on add group. You give it a name, and it has to have its own extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you would click on create groups. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. You can change the name, and then you also have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to your group members, right? If it wasn't answered the first time, for example. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase or decrease as you see fit. You also have the option here to delete a group, and then you click on Save Changes. Next, we have the members box. This shows all my staff members in the group and how they're being offered calls. Now, along the top here are timestamps. You can edit this last one. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, 2 minutes. That might be long, that might be short, up to you. Now, this current setup is referred to as blast ringing or ring all within telecom. And that just means I'm ringing all of my staff members at the same time for the same amount of time. Now, I could click on distribute here. So now it's ringing in order, right? So Aaron first, David, Michael, etc. These are sliders, so I can click and drag. Oops. All right, so I can have more overlap if I wanted to. Likewise, if I don't like this order, let's say Aaron just got a big project, I can click and drag and move him to the bottom. Now, he's still first because he's starting off at the 0-second mark. But this will allow me to make some additional changes. And now I can click distribute, right? So now Michael's first and Aaron's last. Now, every call that comes in follows this order, right? So let's say first call comes in, Michael, answers the call because he's offered to do it first. He's helping that customer. A second call comes in, the system's going to try to offer the call to Michael. Now, if Michael answered the phone and his phone has call waiting enabled, right, he'll hear a beep. Now, once it's been offered to him for like 48 seconds, then it moves on to David, right? Then David's phone starts ringing. So then David could be offered a call. Right? That's usually why people would do something like this, where there's a little bit more overlap. So the inbound callers aren't waiting too often, especially if they notice things are getting busy. Those are your own, basically, these are your only routing options within a group. Now, for your staff members, they can answer or make use of calls or, to answer calls. They can use a phone, they can use a landline, they can use a phone. On ACD queues, you can only use a VoIP phone currently. Right, so no landlines, no cell phones. Now, once someone's assigned to a group, they're in the group, right? They can't take themselves out unless they're a system admin, right? They can't mark themselves away, what have you. The only option they would have would be the D&D toggle at the top of their page, right up here, which means they wouldn't be offered calls. Now, that just means their phones won't ring, right? When they're in a group, right, the call is going to ring to them for that whole time until someone else picks up if there's overlap. The other thing to note is if a user has multiple devices, when they get a call from the group, all of the devices ring at the same time. Right? There's a user feature called Follow Me that allows you to set the order of what devices will ring when. Right? So Yealing phone first for 10, 15 seconds, and then soft phone for 20 seconds, and then cell phone for a minute. Right? Well, if that particular user happens to be in a group and a call comes into them from the group call ignores the Follow Me feature completely. It just rings all the devices. All right, groups can have extensions, right? That's so staff members can transfer calls to them. They can also have their own phone number, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. Now, when you have a phone number on a group, right, it's not part of your virtual receptionist, right? Not part of your main numbers. It's not one of your auto attendants. So that means that a number on a group or on a user for that matter, or anywhere else, right, does not have hours of operation. So that means it's available 24/7. All right, then we have group features. One minute, I'm being pinged about something. All right, sorry about that. So first group feature is a ring back. So when a call is offered to a group, right, it rings to your staff members. So when your staff members' phones start to ring, that ringing sound is piped back to your inbound caller, right? So they hear something. So they hear that ringing sound. If you want to replace that ringing sound that's coming back to your inbound callers, right? That's why it's called ringback. You would enable this feature, and then you can upload a .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And so that will replace that ringing sound. Now, if for some reason, when we're offering the call to your user or users, and we don't get that ringing sound, right? That means your inbound caller hears silence, right? Because there's nothing to replace. So like we got busy tone. Next action, to me, this is the most important group feature. And basically it's, if no one answers, where do you want the system to end the call? Or what do you want the system to do with the call? Right, so you would enable the feature, and then you have a pull down here. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your secondary attendants. Right, you can send it to a call queue if you have them, specific device, specific user, right? So a specific person. You can send it to a voicemail box. I believe that's a lot, yeah, or a specific voicemail box, right? So that way the inbound caller can leave a message. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. They're not going to be at their normal desk phone. They're sending calls to, say, their private cell phone. Caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. Excuse me. You can add text that shows up in front of the caller ID that shows up on their VoIP phone's displays, or additional numbers. Right? Again, it gives your staff members a potential heads up about the kind of call they're about to get. Right? So if people are in multiple groups, that can help them. Numbers, this shows your numbers in use by default. You can't unassign a number here or assign a number here. Right? This is just to say, hey, this is where it is. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, and prepend. You have the spare numbers tab. So this is where you can remove a number from your account. Right? Once a number is put in spare, so keep an eye up here where it says numbers. Right? I click on the box in front of these two numbers, and now I have the option to say delete. So I click delete. It says, are you sure? I confirm the deletion and continue, and now those numbers are removed from my account. All right, you can buy numbers here, right? Local toll free. It just adds them directly as a spare number, so then you would add it someplace else eventually. Port, start the porting process. You give it a name. Choose local toll free. Then the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. That's within the last 30 days. It's going to want the numbers you're going to want to port, the address associated with those numbers, or that's associated on your bill. Then it will give you a chance to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA, and then you can upload a completed and signed LOA. You can enter an email address, that way you get notified for progress of the port. You can include the date that you want the port to complete. We try to honor that date, but we don't have control over that. Right? The other carrier actually tells us when they're releasing the number. You generally need to make that date in the future. Right? You'll put it at the same date as you're submitting. There's 4 checkboxes that you need to read and check, and then you submit the port request. Right? That gets sent to our porting team. They, you'll get an email right away saying, hey, you submit a port request. Once our porting team has taken a look at the documents and actually submitted the request, you'll get a second email from them saying, yes, we got your porting documents. Here's what to expect. Toll-free numbers, if everything's correct, typically 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers, average 2 to 3 weeks. If there's a problem, we get a rejection, we double check what the rejection is, right? So like if it was an address mismatch, we make sure that we didn't typo on the address that was submitted. If there happens to be a difference between, let's say, the address you have on your LOA and the address you have on the copy of the bill you submitted, we'll try that second address as well, right? If both come back as rejected, then we let you know saying, hey, we got an address mismatch error or rejection rather. These are that, and we typically try to let you know what addresses we tried, but basically you're gonna have to talk to the current carrier to find out what address they're really looking for in order to report out. All right, users shows all your users on the account. The gray person, standard user. Person with the blue suit, they're system admin, meaning they can do all the things we're talking about. Up here at the top is where you add a user, right? Just basically you're filling out the form. First name, last name. Hopefully you know their name. The email address used for login, this is unique to each user, right? So you can't reuse an email address. This email address is used to send credentials to the user, right? Send voicemail notifications, password resets. All right. Then you have the password here, right? So you create a password for them. And then the main extension number, right? And again, if the system will suggest an extension number based on what you started with, you can type in whatever you want. I usually recommend 4-digit extensions. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user right off the bat. Right? This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if you created a user and say added a VoIP phone to them right away, they can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 and click send or call. That will take them right to the voicemail box that was just created. And then the system will walk them through creating a PIN number for that voicemail box and their voicemail box greeting. Here you have the option if you want them to be in the user directory. You can change that later. This is the option to send emails to an alternate address. So if for some reason you don't want the emails to go to the email address used for login, you would put a check mark here, and then you would enter in a different email address. And that email will get the voicemail notifications or password resets, etc. And then this one here, I think is important, send credentials to the user, right? So once you click on create user, if you have this checked, they're going to get an email saying, hey, welcome to Dash. Here's your user, here's how to log in, right? Your username, your password, and the account realm or the account name. Now, if you only need to create one user, click on create user. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. All right, so you can change their name if you need to. You can change their credentials, and if you click on that, well, right, there's change credentials. So here you can change the email address, you can change their password. You can also send them the password reset email manually. If you change the PIN number, right, for the voicemail box, like they completely forgot it, so you can make a new one. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. This pull down over here to the right allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This is the time zone for that specific user, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps are correct to them. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds for any user. That's plenty of time for a landline or a VoIP phone. If your user is only using a cell phone, you're going to want to increase this to at least 30 seconds, if not 45. It just takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than to, say, a landline, right? The landline telecom knows exactly where that phone is. The cell phone telecom needs to find the phone first. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Just click on add an extension. If you're going to change extensions on a user, I recommend add the new extension number that they're going to use, right? Save changes, click on the box, and then unassign the original, especially if you want to put the original onto someone else. Users can have their own phone number, right? So you can add from spare, buy new. They can have multiple numbers. Get the little gear icon here as well. And just like in groups, right, this phone number doesn't have hours of operation or holidays. It is available 24/7. You have a devices box here for users. So you got the cell phone. He's got a Yealink. Got another device here and a web phone. Right, you can add from spare devices or a new device. Right, so you can add SIP phone. The one I want to start with here though is soft phone. So unlike on the devices page, when you add a soft phone directly to a user, you have this option down here at the bottom. It says use third-party application. That's the default. If you click on that, it flips it, and now it says use VirtualPBX application, meaning you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone. You give it a name, you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. When you click on save changes, Aaron here is going to get an email. You can say your VirtualPBX soft phone is now ready. It's going to have the username and the password, as well as download links. Right, so the VirtualPBX soft phone uses different credentials than your Dash login. Right, the other thing you can add here is the web phone. Right, because since the web phone uses your Dash login information, you just give it a name, click on create device, and then save changes, and then Aaron would have that link to get to the web phone, or just go to webphone.virtualpbx.net. User features, caller ID number. This is only for users that have their own phone number. When you enable this, then you select their phone number or whichever phone number you want to use. That becomes their outbound caller ID from their VoIP phones. Right, then save changes. Virtual text application is a new feature. You click enable, you choose a phone number. Now the phone number has to either be assigned directly to the user, be an auto attendant number, or a main number. You click on save changes. When you do that, the user gets an email with their login link to the virtual text website, as well as they can also download the virtual text app. They can then text from that number. Also on virtual text, you can share numbers among staff members, select your main numbers. So that way you have multiple staff members who can respond to or send texts out to your customers. Voicemail box. This is basically default. Now, transcription or transcribe is actually a plan-specific feature. All that is the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type out what it hears into the email notification. Now, if the person isn't speaking into their microphone, they have a lot of background noise, that's going to probably impact the quality or the accuracy rather of that transcription. Now, by default, the system does send an email out when a voicemail is left, and it includes an MP3 attachment of that voicemail, right? So then you can just double click and listen to it. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. So if you have staff members who are not good about cleaning out their voicemail boxes, you also have the option to delete them after the system sends out that email. The limitation is that means that user can only ever check their voicemails via email, right? So if they ever have an email delivery problem, right, their email isn't getting to them for whatever reasons, then they lose those voicemails. Right, now, if you leave it as default like this, your staff can, check their voicemails from their phones. Right? They can log into their voicemail box and listen to it, and they can delete it from there. They can also get to their voicemails via the user portal. Right, so when they log into dash.virtualpbx.com, by default, they go to the user portal, and it starts them off on their voicemail tab. So they can listen to the messages, download them, delete them, etc. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. When you first enable it, it looks like this because you need to tell the system what devices to actually make use of. Now, this is for calls only coming directly to the user, right? If they're in a group, the group calls ignore this feature. If they're in a queue, they need to select their queue device on the queue page, which we'll get to later. But you uncheck the devices, and it actually, here, I probably should have done that from the get-go. All right. But it starts them off at 0 seconds. Now, you can click and drag, so that way they have a duration. Right, up here at the top, right, timestamps. So just like groups, you can adjust it. The default on the follow me is 120 seconds. Right, you can click distribute. You can click and drag their phones and then click distribute again, right, to bring in that order. And then you would click on save changes. Fax box, users can have their own fax box if you want them to. If you do this, I do recommend making use of a phone number. That way they can send and receive faxes. You do have an option to assign a new extension number, but that means the fax box or this user can only ever receive new faxes, right? They can never send out because the system will try to use their fax box extension number as their caller ID when they try to fax out, and that will fail. Conference bridge, when you enable conference bridge on a user, the main thing you need to do is create the PIN number for them and then click on save changes. They can change their PIN numbers themselves later. The enable video conferencing is only within your Dash account. Right, so people calling outside won't have that option. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Right, off or on, your users can actually set this up themselves, either via the user portal or from their VoIP phones. Failover mode, you would have to set up for them. But from the pull down, you choose a mobile phone or a desk phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number. Then you click on save changes. What failover mode means is if Aaron's VoIP phone goes offline, right, becomes unregistered, and a call happens to come to his user, the system can automatically forward the call to the phone number you designated. Now, in Aaron's case, he's got multiple devices, so failover mode probably not as useful. But when you have staff members with only one VoIP device, then you probably want to have failover mode enabled. Customize call recording. So by default, when you first enable it, it looks like this. You need to tell the system what kind of calls you're going to record. Right, inbound internal, coworker call. Right, so coworker Bob called Aaron. Right, inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron. Outbound internal means Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external means Aaron called customer Mary. And then you click on save changes. Right, and you can do any combination of those four. Now, every account includes some level of storage as part of your monthly price, varies by plan. When you go over that storage amount, you're the storage an overage fee. You're not blocked, or no longer recording calls. For the specifics of that for your account, you'd want to check with our account services team. Music on hold, you decide to have your users have their own hold music. .wave, MP3, under 1 megabyte, recorded mono. This would be, for instance, you want your salespeople to have one set of hold music, whereas like your support people have a different set of hold music, right? So the salespeople would emphasize whatever promotions are going on, whereas your support staff would say, hey, sorry for the wait. You can also go to our support page for more information, etc. Do not disturb. If you enable that on a user, that means they're not being offered calls. Hot desking, VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID. So if you make use of 4-digit extensions, I say just make the hot desk ID match their extension number. click on Save Changes. This is for use in a shared office environment, or if you're on a hybrid scheduling and you've downsized your office space. So Aaron comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the phone, dials *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system asks him for his hot desk ID, and then tell him calls will now be sent to this device. So rest of his workday, he's getting calls at desk number 2. End of his shift, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. He goes home. Next time he comes to the office, strolls in, say it's a Friday, Angela's sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning, and then he sits down at desk number 10. Same thing. Picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, and now he's getting calls. All right, voicemail boxes. So voicemail boxes on the account are shown here. If they have an entry here in this column, that means that was a user voicemail box, right? It's created with the user at the same time. If they don't, that means it was either system created in the case of the main voicemail box, or manually created by you or another system admin. Up here at the top, you click on Add Voicemail Box, give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Then you click on Create Voicemail Box. We click on the wrench icon here, right? You can always review that information. And obviously you need these two to record a voicemail greeting or check the voicemail over the phone. Under Advanced, Greeting Media. So for any voicemail box you create manually, right, you're going to want to upload a file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte, or you can use a pull down to select a media file you already have on the system. So like if you have a generic file for everyone's voicemail box that you use, right, you would just choose it here, click Save Changes. The temporary file is for a vacation out of office message, right? So when you have something selected under temporary, it will supersede whatever you have set up under media until you set temporary back to none. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For any voicemail you create manually, you come here and you click where it says Add New Recipient. You enter in the email address here. Now, if you only need to add one, you would just click Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, so enter the email address, you click Add, right? You get another row. And repeat until you're done, and then Save Changes. When you have a recipient in place and a greeting media in place, then you can say, hey, this voicemail box is already set up. Oops. Right, then you have these two options here to decide on, are you automatically sending the attachment via email, and are you deleting it after notification? And then Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. This particular feature is actually not enabled on new accounts at sign up, so that's something you'd have to talk to our account services team about. What this does is allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or a landline, log in, and then make an outbound call. And when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID, but rather it is your main number. So you click here. First, once the feature is enabled on the account, so it shows up, you would enable it. And the system automatically assigns a PIN number. Now, if you leave it like this, that means you need to make DISA a menu option off of your auto attendance or your main menu, right? The virtual receptionist. That's not recommended just because someone might hit it accidentally and then when the system asks for the PIN number, take that as a challenge, right? And then try to figure out the PIN number, and then they can log into your system, make calls without you knowing it. One way to help with that is if you click Edit Settings here, one, you can change the PIN number, but the main thing here I would suggest is add an extension number. So now enter an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. So like this account started with extension 1000, right? So the next sequence would be like 1023 or something. Well, if someone's really determined to try to figure this out, right, they will figure out what my extension sequence is. So I would rather create an extension number that's completely different from what I normally use. And then even then, I might even, oops, sorry. You can also change the PIN number, obviously. And then you just click on Save Changes. So now you can call in from your cell phone or landline to one of your phone numbers that goes to an auto attendant or your virtual receptionist. You would enter in this extension number, and then you're prompted to enter the PIN number, right? Once you hit the PIN number, you would then enter in a area code or phone number that you want to reach out to because you'll be hearing dial tone. Make an outbound call. And again, that caller ID that shows up, not your cell phone, but this main number that you set up here under the company caller ID. Now, one way to keep track of if someone's making calls out on your account without you knowing about it right away would be the call logs. So here you can see that there's some outbound calls made here. Right, this doesn't tell me a lot of information. In fact, these would be suspect. Now, if we go back further, I have these calls coming in. I can click on them. So here, a green arrow to the right means it's an inbound call, and it came in and rang to this device. Looks like they connected since they had normal clearing. Right here, this is an outbound call, and I can see the device it came from, what number it went to, so I know, again, it's a legitimate call. Every entry has this fire hydrant icon. You can click on that. That's going to create an email for you to go to support@virtualpbx.com. It will include the technical details. You want to in that email, you want to type in the body of it saying the context, like why are you sending this in? Whether it was because you had an audio issue or your phone didn't actually ring or what have you. You can download these files as a CSV file, right? So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can manipulate the data quite a bit. Under this custom folder or tab, you can select the date range. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, right? 12 months. And then our engineering team can go back an additional 6 months on top of that, so 18 total. After that, the data is lost, right? It's removed from the system. If you need your call logs for compliance reasons, I would recommend downloading every month as a CSV, and then you can just label it by the month and year. Feature codes, I've alluded to a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phones. This is a web page on our support pages. There's also a phone commands cheat sheet, which has context about how to use these more clearly. And that is the dashboard. All right, next up we have blacklists. Blacklist is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system, meaning that when they try to call in, they get busy tone. So you click Edit Settings, and if you don't have a list, you click Add List, or Add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right? You can change the name. And then first up, are you blocking anonymous callers, excuse me, right? So if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, then we'll block it, right? They get busy tone. Otherwise, you click Add Number, +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. And keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, you would then click on Save. Then you go back to Settings, and you make sure your lists are on the right-hand side here under Selected. So like I can click and drag and add this one. Then you click Update. And now any phone number on these 3 lists are now going to get busy tone when they try to call any of my phone numbers. Faxes. This is your fax manager. So you can see where faxes or your various fax boxes. See the date and the time a fax came in, since I'm under the inbound faxes for my main fax box, number it came from, the fax box, the phone number. The pages, I can download it I can see technical details. If I click on the box in front of it, I can remove it. Otherwise, this is just for sorting. Outbound fax tab. If you see a failure on the outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem communicating, like here, with this phone number, or rather this phone number here. Now, that could be that the line was busy. That could be that there was a disconnect while we tried to print out. You can click on this last icon here, the horizontal lines. Sometimes this information will tell you more, right? Status failed. No, we already saw that. Let's see if it gives us anything more. And it does not. Every now and then, you'll see things like user busy or like unexpected disconnect, something like that. That's an indication that you'd want to double check with whoever you're faxing to make sure you got the right number and that they're not having a problem with on their side. The email to fax logs, if there's anything here, that means there was a problem with the system processing the request, right? So we didn't actually dial a number yet. Now, you got a little thumbs down icon down here. You got or at the far right, you've got the little eyeball icon. If you click on that, under errors, you should have some more information. In this case, it's saying no valid attachment. That could be no attachment was actually included, or more likely, someone attached something that was not a PDF or a TIFF. Right? They tried to send a JPEG or an Excel file. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. Reports, this is a plan-specific feed. It actually would take you to reports.virtualpbx.com in a new tab. This is our advanced reporting, which means you can basically create your own reports. Under our YouTube channel, you would want to go under videos and look up the advanced reporting demo to see what it can do. But again, this is a plan-specific feature, so if you're interested, check that demo, and then you'd want to talk to our account services team. The voicemail manager lets you get to any, as an admin, lets you get to any voicemail box on the account. You can do a search as well. So you can see the voicemail boxes or voicemails in the particular voicemail box. You can listen to them, you can download them. When you click on the box here, as an admin, you can move a voicemail to another voicemail box. And then you can also change the status, right? So if someone's voicemail box is full, you can come in and start deleting messages. Oops, up here on the right, ACD queues. This is an upgrade on existing plans. It's possible you may have to upgrade your plan and then have an add-on fee on top of that for queues. There are two kinds of queues that we currently have. The first is what we have here are the standard ACD queues. We also have ACD Queues Pro. Now, accounts can only have one or the other. They can't have both, so I can only show you one. However, on our YouTube channel, we have an ACD Queues Pro demo. I would encourage you to take a look at that. The major differences between the standard queues and the Pro queues. Pro queues, admins can eavesdrop on a call, right? Whisper to their agent or barge in. There's also more advanced metrics available in the queues themselves. And then beyond that, there's more customization you can do within the hold music or the hold treatment. All right, so on the queues, normally you would click on add a new queue over here. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here on an existing queue. You need to give the queue a name and then choose if a queue is having a phone number or an extension, right? It can have one or the other, not both. Then you've got the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, this pull down doesn't work. Round robin equalizes out over time. You've got most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call. Least calls, least amount of connected calls. And then least offered would be the combination of missed and connected calls. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file. Right, .wav, .mp3. For queues, the limit is, I believe, is 5 megabytes. Now again, on the standard queues, you can only upload a media file. On the Pro queues, you can have multiple media files play. You can have the option to announce their position in line or their expected wait time. Queue timeout measured in seconds, how much time the inbound caller can wait on hold. The queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of the number of people who are already speaking to your staff members. Timeout immediately if empty. If you have this enabled, that means you have none of your staff are logged into a queue and a call comes into the queue. The system will treat that caller as if they've already hit this 3,600 seconds. The escalation call flow after timeout. This is what the system does after that caller has been on hold for 3,600 seconds. You have a pull down. You can send callers to a group, to a user, to a different queue, back to your virtual receptionist, a voicemail, etc. Zero out call flow. If you select something in this pull down, then you're enabling the ability for the inbound caller to press 0 while they're waiting on hold, right, to get out of the queue. And then that pull down, same options, right? Send to back to the virtual receptionist, a group, another queue, a user, or voicemail, etc. If you leave it at none, that means your inbound callers have to wait on hold or hang up. No option to press 0. Agent recovery time measured in seconds. This is how much time and the system gives an agent after they're done with a queue call before it offers them a second call. Right, so it gives time. So if you have it set for like 15 like we do here, maybe enough time to get a sip of water, right? Maybe finish their notes. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if your staff member misses a call, the system automatically marks them as away. And then they have to manually mark themselves ready again. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20, which is plenty of time for queue calls because by default, you can only accept calls on a VoIP phone. It is possible, or we're still, as far as I know, still testing with calls to cell phones and landlines. So it's still possible to select that as a potential option. Just keep in mind is once a call gets to a cell phone or landline, they can't transfer. Right, so they have to handle the call. Otherwise, if the person they're talking to needs to speak to someone else within your organization, they have to call back in. All right, so once you have queues created over here on the left, you click on members. This list of people are the people who are available to be in my ACD queues. It doesn't mean they're assigned to a queue. It just means they're available to be a queue member. Up here, I click on Manage Members. That list moved over to the right. Now this list on the left, I can add to be a member of my queues. Right, so now I moved Aaron over. So you click multiple people at once to move a bunch over at once. So once you've assigned people as to be members of queues, you go back to the queues page. If you click on a queue name, right here, agents, that's where you would assign new staff members. Right, click and drag, click Save Changes. Right, and then I can click on managers. Once you have agents assigned, you can click and drag from that group of agents to make them managers, or vice versa in the case of Bob. Now, for your staff members, right, they can log into Dash, and they'll have ACD queues here as an option. And actually, let me go ahead and end my session here. Right, so now, beginning of my day, right, I come here, I click on Begin Session, it puts me in away mode. You want to click on the little phone icon here and select the device. Right, make sure it's on a specific device. You do not want select all. And that way, this way I know whenever this particular device rings, right, that's call coming in from a queue, most likely. Right, it's not going to offer it to any of my other devices. So once I've done that, I click on the handset icon again. Now I mark myself as ready. And that means now I can take calls from the queue. If I'm being offered a call, my little bar here on the left turns light blue when I'm on a connected inbound call in the queue, it turns a dark blue. If I'm on an external call, right, so someone called my extension number directly or I called a customer back, it will show up as yellow. And if I'm on wrap-up time, it would show up as gold. All right, dynamic caller ID, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. The first one is the easiest one, which is this one here, right, where I gave it a name, in this case 408. I selected a phone number on my account, which in this case is this 408 phone number. And then I said the rule is whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 area code phone number, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 number. Right, so that way it looks like a local call to whoever we're calling. And then save changes. Slightly more complicated is this one up here, where I created a feature code. So now I'm relying on my staff members to dial *550, then area code and phone number. When they do that, the system automatically replaces their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Now, when you create feature codes, I do recommend the star and then 3 digits. That way you should not run into any conflicts with the existing feature codes on the system. Monitor is also another plan-specific feature. Excuse me. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what device they're using, right? So if someone's on, has 5 devices, they have to be on a call on one of them, they would show up likely as a blue bar saying, hey, and what device and who they're calling. All right, you can sort by available and who's busy. You can also sort by device. Over here, it's a little bit grayed out. So the top is active inbound calls. And then each one would have a box for each call. So you can see who they're speaking to. And then parked calls, if there's a parked call, you'd also see the parking spot number to the right. The recording manager has 2 potential destinations. The first one, which is standard, would take you to recordings.virtualpbx.net .com. You use your dash login. You can then view your recordings there, play them back, delete them, etc. The other place it could take you is if you have AWS integration enabled and have it properly set up to link your Dash account with your AWS account. That means you're using AWS to store your calls or anything else that's related to your Dash account. If that's the case, then when you have the recording manager, that will take you and show you your AWS call storage, right? So then you can view the recordings there, play them back, etc. Webhooks, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. So like Zapier, for example, is the most common one. You would just create a new webhook. You'd fill this out. This is basically some level of programming. But then when you click on create hook, you need another piece of software that you're linking to on the other end. So for like Zapier example, we have a webinar on our YouTube channel, an introduction to Zapier. You can also look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have used to link Dash to other software. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? So as an admin, you can't get to anyone else's user portal. Now, here it defaults you to your voicemails, right? So you can see what new voicemails you have. You can listen to them, download them. As a user, you can also change its status, right? But you can't move it to somebody else. Call history, you can see your individual call history. You have your date range to see what's going on. Faxes, this only is useful if you have your own fax box, right? Because then you can see your fax history. Contact list will show you everything within your Dash account. So you can see other users, right? Their extension number, their own phone numbers. Same with for groups, your feature codes, auto attendance, etc. Your staff members will not be able to edit this, right? This is view only. Right. Conference tab, this is where users would adjust their conference settings. So for instance, there are 2 PIN numbers for the moderator and for their participants. They can have the option here, people are joining deafened or muted. And then are they playing entry and exit tones? When they're actually in a conference, they can come to the user portal. Here, they can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock a conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up, right, end the conference. Also, when they're in an active conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. And then you can mute a specific person or unmute them, as well as kick them out. And then the Settings and Devices tab, this is where your users would enable call forwarding on their own. Put a little check mark here, put +1 area code and phone number, and whatever options they want, and then save, as well as see the status of their devices. And that is everything. I do apologize for running along today. Got pinged a couple of different times there. But I do thank you for your time today, and we will be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.